Hey guys, so today's kind of a different video. I'm gonna make a video about Kenobi and just talk to you guys about like what I love about him, his story, how I got him. Kenobi's getting really old. He is 13 and a half. I adopted him and they estimated that he was 1 year old when I got him. That was 12 and a half years ago, believe it or not. And he's getting to the point where he's getting old. He's kind of stumbling around. He's been falling over recently. It's pretty hard for me to deal with. I love Kenobi a lot. He has kind of been there since I was 18 years old, believe it or not, is when I got him. It was right around, well, it was probably about 19. But when I was in college in Colorado, I decided that I wanted a dog, and I started looking and looking and looking, and I've told myself that I would wait 6 months before I actually got a dog. I was just going to look, even though if I fell in absolute love with a dog, I was just going to give myself a period of time to look for a dog. And Kenobi, funny enough, it was like 6 months had rolled around. It was the day, Doodle, I got Doodle after Kenobi. I'll talk about him a little bit in this video too. But it was literally one day after a 6 month period. I went to the shelter and I was like, okay, and I've been looking at humane societies and looking and looking and looking and looking, and I just kind of kept looking. I'm gonna take Thor's little jingle off here. Thor just brought me his ball, as you can see. But I was looking, and so I went to the shelter, and it was literally the first day after I told myself I was gonna wait 6 months. It had been 6 months and 1 day. I was walking into the Humane Society in Frisco, Colorado, and they had just taken Kenobi off the truck as I arrived, and they were walking him in. And he kind of looked at me, and I kind of looked at him, and I was like, oh, you know, like that was a... And he was in absolutely terrible shape. He weighs about 97 pounds right now. When I got him... Thor, enough with the squeaking. When I got him, he weighed 68 pounds. He was covered in blood and scabs. They had found Kenobi on top of Rabbit Ear Pass, I believe, which is in Colorado, which is pretty remote, pretty in the middle of nowhere, and they estimated that he had been on his own for maybe 3 to 4 months. They're not sure how he got on his own. He gets scared really easily. He's afraid of loud noises, so the shelter thought maybe that he had possibly been abused, and he's a big, strong, thick-headed dog. He's very smart. He's a Great Pyrenees. He's kind of like that sheepdog in the cartoon Wile E. Coyote is always kind of trying to trick, and the dog always catches him. That's exactly how Kenobi is. He always catches on to whatever you're doing sooner or later, and it always comes around where he's like, hey, I know what's happening here. So they were walking him in off the truck. I walked into the front desk and I had asked, I had just saw a dog coming in off the truck, what's his story? And they told me that they needed to wait, I think 3 weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, 2.5 or 3 weeks until he was available for adoption, because his owner needed a chance to come and find him. They were going to check to see if he had a tag, a chip, or anything like that, none of which he had. He had on a very shabby, kind of homemade type of collar, and I honestly think that maybe Kenobi lived with someone who was like a kind of like a mountain person that spent a lot of time in the wilderness, who was a little transient, didn't necessarily have a place to live, and this, I don't know, that's just kind of the vibe I got from Kenobi. So they told me I needed to wait. I asked if I could at least see him and pet him, and they said that was okay. So I got in the room with Kenobi, and he was kind of sitting in the corner staring at me. He was, I think, in a little bit of shock, that he was in a kennel. I kind of was like, oh, come here, boy, come here, come on. Like a good boy, a good dog. And I started scratching him behind the ears and petting him. And I sat with him for almost 2 hours. Hello, Lola. And, yeah, I know, Lola, you want to steal the show. You want to steal the show, don't you? Come on, it's okay, Kenobi, lay down. Lola's not going to steal the show. And I sat with him for a very long time, and I got a sense that he was a very, very gentle soul, and I absolutely fell in love with him. So I pretty much went back almost every day, if not every other day, to visit Kenobi, spend time with him. I had filled out an application the first day, which they said, was kind of first come, first serve. So the process for that was I was able to put my application in. You know, I had to clear it with my landlord, get some references. They wanted to make sure I knew how to own a dog and take care of a dog, which I'd grown up with them my whole life, and I did. So I think it was 3 weeks rolled around, and I needed to get there as soon as possible for my application to save its spot. So when I walked in, there was a girl there who I had actually known for a couple years, and I thought was actually a very, very irresponsible person. She partied. She already had a dog that she had given up to adoption, and this dog would be tied up outside the bar till 3 in the morning and ended up biting something. And I saw her there. I was like bewildered at the fact that she wanted to get another dog, but you know, I said I was here for Kenobi. I turned in my application, and she was filling one out for him, and the lady was like, "Oh, well, I'm sorry. He has already filled out an application. He's been waiting for this dog. We told him if he came back, we would process his application." And I got to take Kenobi home for the first time, and it was absolutely amazing. He has been like the greatest, most wonderful dog I've ever had. I've only had really 2 incidents with him, which I'll get into in just a minute. And he was my dog. So I brought him home. I was living with my brother in Breckenridge, Colorado at the time, and I needed to leave to come back to Minnesota on a Saturday morning, and my brother was coming back on Saturday night. And my brother told me to absolutely not get a dog. He told me he said I was probably, you know, not responsible enough at the time. He didn't want to live with a dog. There was, you know, it really was going to change my life to the point where I needed to be home every day to take care of him. I needed to feed him every day. So I didn't tell him about Kenobi. Didn't tell him about Kenobi at all. So I left Minnesota, or for Minnesota, I left Kenobi there. And my brother came back to our house, and he walked in, and Kenobi was sitting there looking at him, and he was kind of like, okay, well, this is a gigantic dog. He's sitting there, and Kenobi had actually pooped on the floor. It was the first time he pooped after I brought him from the shelter, and Tom told me it was this gigantic pile of poop, and Kenobi was a little nervous, of course, that he had pooped on the floor, but my brother was like, oh, you know, like, it's okay, like, relax. Oh yeah, I know, I'm talking about you, aren't you? Aren't I? And he cleaned it up, and he fell in love with Kenobi at that point too. Ooh, okay, so I had to change the camera battery because it died on me. Hey, where are you going? And Kenobi moved. Okay, so yeah, you're a good boy. And ever since, he's been my companion. He's been everything I could ever imagine. I had a wonderful dog growing up, a golden retriever named Daisy, who we put down when I was 14 and she was 16. So she was the most constant thing in my life from the age that I was born to I was 14. She was always there for me. I loved her a lot. She loved me a lot. She took care of me. She'd walk me out to the bus. I'd come home and she'd be waiting for me to get off the bus. And she was just always there for me. Yes, thank you, Kenobi. So I learned what, you know, a good dog, what a good companion was, what is a young age. To have someone who is always there for you is just, I love it. And Kenobi has been that for me the last 12 years of my life. He lived with me through college. He's traveled with me back and forth from Minnesota, Colorado to Minnesota when I was in college, California to Minnesota. Now here we are, and my whole family loves him. Everybody just thinks he's the greatest. A lot of people ask me how Kenobi got his name, and that was the name that the shelter had picked for him when they brought him in. And I thought that was really fitting. You know, he's big, he's white, he's very kind of majestic, noble. I think he's a very honorable dog. He's a half Pyrenees, half lab mix. And Pyrenees are dogs that they take when they're puppies. They put them with herds of sheep, and the dog grows up with the sheep thinking that he is one of them and he will protect them. They'll take the herds of sheep out to the mountains with maybe 2 or 3 Pyrenees, a llama, and an alpaca, and between those 3 dogs and the llama, they will ward off wolves, coyotes, foxes, anything that wants to come and try to do harm to what is the Pyrenees family, the sheep herd. Yes, hello Doodle, you're good too. Come on, Thor. Don't worry, you'll get your video too. I'll make a video about Thor too. He's got a great story. Can you sit down? He's my little squirt. He's my sidekick. Kenobi's my rock. Yes, okay, kisses, great. So that Kenobi was half lab, half Pyrenees, which they are bred to bond. And you know, Kenobi has very much bonded with me. He has bonded with Nikki. He has bonded with Iris. He is a family dog. He sheds a lot, but you know, I don't care. It doesn't bother me. You know, people are like, ugh, dog hair everywhere, and I'm like, you know, that's just kind of part of the deal sometimes. So all the way through college. Kenobi and I lived together. I lived in Breckenridge for a couple years, Fort Collins, Colorado, and I would take Kenobi up to Loveland Pass, which is the Continental Divide of the Rocky Mountains. It's about 14,000-ish feet, I think, well, right, maybe below 14,000 feet. But we would drive up to the very, very top of the pass, and you can ski. You can kind of park your car, you can ski down to the bottom of the hill, and you can hitchhike back up. It's about a 2-mile ride. It takes about 15, 20, 25 minutes to ski down the pass, depending on what you do. And I would actually take Kenobi with me, and this is my favorite memory of Kenobi, and part of the reason I wanted to make this video today, so I always remember him. But I would take him with me, and he would run and bound and leap and chase me down the hill, and we would ski for hours. We'd go up, we'd go down, we'd go up, we'd go down. Strangers would pick me up hitchhiking with this just magnificent dog, and we just had an absolute wonderful time, a huge blast. Kenobi loves the cold. I got him in Colorado. The first time I brought him back to Minnesota in the winter, it was about negative 25 degrees outside, and Kenobi went outside and just started jumping up and down and turning and spinning and rolling in the snow. He absolutely loved it, and he adored it. And then I got Thor in college too, and he became Kenobi's kind of anchor. Kenobi, I think, had a lot of anxiety about being rescued. I don't know if he rescued me or I rescued him, but both of us were, it was kind of like a thing, I think, that was meant to be for us. But he, when I got Thor, Kenobi he calmed down a lot. He settled down a lot. Kenobi has bitten 2 people. I don't think you want to have a dog that bites people. That's just not a good thing. But Kenobi, when I was in college, when I first got him, he was very new to my house. He was kind of, still really unfamiliar with where I was living and what was going on. And me and my friend came home from the bar at about 3 in the morning. We were having a great night. We were feeling good. And Kenobi, we had woken him up, and he was kind of sitting there groggy-eyed. And my friend Alex kind of like, he was playing with him, but he was like, ah, and he went to Kenobi and scared Kenobi. And Kenobi kind of grabbed his hand. He didn't actually bite him, but he grabbed his hand and then started yelping like very loudly and retreated and laid down. And you could tell instantly that he regretted that decision that he had made to grab my friend Alex's hand. And my friend Alex was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done that. That was, I just didn't think that, he's new here. He's very kind of like, is not yet settled and comfortable. And he apologized profusely for scaring my dog. And I was really unhappy with Kenobi. I didn't want him to do that, but it was, again, I didn't think it was his fault. So I went through some of my Cesar Malone training techniques with him. I let him know that that was not okay, that he bit somebody, but again, I don't think it was his fault. And the second time Kenobi bit somebody, he actually bit my friend Chad, who you've seen in some of our earlier prank videos, maybe a couple vlogs here and there. He's the guy that pranked me with the jet ski. But Chad, Kenobi was just still, I was visiting my brother, and Chad was his roommate, and Chad was kind of a big, tough, rough and tough guy, and always in charge. And he went up to Kenobi and did kind of the same thing that Alex did, and got in his face real quick. And I was like, no, Chad, don't do that, don't do that. And he did it a couple times, and Kenobi, he didn't like bite him, but he definitely kind of snipped him or snapped him, what I would say, his face, and got Chad. And that, for me, it wasn't a very good day for Kenobi or me or Chad or anybody that was involved in this whole process. It was terrifying. And I had Kenobi for just under, right around 9 months at that point. And that was when I decided, okay, for the next 3 months, like, we're gonna work hard, we're gonna train, we're gonna make sure something like this never happens. And I gave him a year, and I decided that if Kenobi ever bit anybody again after having him for a year, I would put him down. As hard as that is to say, as big as a decision it is to make, I put a year of training into Kenobi to make sure that he was behaved well, he could be around kids, he could be with people, and there was really no fear of me I would have of him biting people. And so ever since that year mark has passed, Kenobi's never bitten anybody. He's never been in a situation, I mean, he's been startled in similar ways, he's been uncomfortable in places, but he's never ever bit anybody ever again, which has made me really happy, because it's always kind of right there in the back of your mind. He loves Iris. He's fantastic with kids. He's just the most gentle, gentlest soul of a type of dog you could ever meet, but he is a Pyrenees, and Pyrenees have a little bit of attitude. They are very protective. They can be aggressive, ferocious if they need to be, because they're bred to protect whoever they're bonded with. So I think Kenobi also kind of thought he was maybe protecting me, even though I didn't actually need protecting at that time. In college, someone did try to break into my house when I lived in Fort Collins. I never figured out who it was, or if they accidentally were, it was a college town, everybody partied. I don't know if someone accidentally came into the wrong house or what, but at about 3 in the morning, I woke up to hearing the door open, and Kenobi just went absolutely crazy. He sounds like, if you've ever heard thunder that kind of rattles your bones, that is his growl, his bark when he goes full on bark and aggressive mode. It is a scary sight. He could stick his hair up 3 inches on his back. So I woke up to him going nuts and someone running away from my house, and that made me so happy that Kenobi did that for me. I think having a dog is a kind of like a security guard, is about the best type of home security system that you can have, and people are really afraid of dogs kind of in general, and big dogs barking at them, and Kenobi was protecting his territory, and that made me really, really happy. So those are really kind of the only incidents I've ever had with Kenobi. He does do this thing where he likes to wander off in the woods at my cabin or wherever he is. If he gets out, he will take off, he will go and do his thing, he will make his rounds. That's what Pyrenees do. They patrol the perimeter, so he will go and sniff and pee and bark on it, and he barks like at the sky. He'll just woof, he'll just be like woof, woof. And I think that's a Pyrenees way of letting whoever's around that he's here, this is his spot. He is paying attention, he's on guard, but he has been a very, very important part of my life. Nikki loves him to death. He loves Nikki, and he would do anything for her. It's the same with Iris. Iris absolutely loves her big dog. And Kenobi, he's getting old. He doesn't feel as well as he did when he was younger, and I see that. And not a lot of people, I say he's going white in the face, and they say, well, John, you're crazy, he's a white dog. But if you look at his face and Kenobi, you can see that he's got, his whole face would be white if he was a brown dog or a black dog. And he's just getting up there. He can't go 4, 5, 6. He can go about 6 hours, and then he needs to go outside to go to the bathroom. So he can't. He used to be able to make it through the night easily with holding his pee in and stuff like that. So I wake up, I walk him about 11 p.m. before I go to bed. I wake up at 6 p.m. I let him out, take him for walks, make sure he does his business. He's on some pain medications now because he's had trouble standing up and sitting down, and it seems like this pill, it's kind of like basically a dog Advil prescribed from the veterinarian. Don't ever give your dog pills without asking your vet, because they have an in-depth knowledge of what dog systems can handle and what they can't handle. So he's on that, and that has been really, really good for Kenobi. He went through a short phase there where he didn't want to get up, he didn't want to go for walks, he didn't want to go outside, and we put him on this medication, and he jumps up. He'll actually he sees a squirrel and he perks up, he'll trot after it a little bit. He by no means can run after it and chase squirrels like he used to. I'm going to take him fishing again in a week or so. I'm really excited about that. He loves to go on the boat and fall asleep, and he's been a really important part of my life, and kind of a really important part of who I am. And I've gone through a lot of struggles in my life. I grew up, I had a lot of growing pains, learning life lessons, and I don't really talk about that ever too much in my videos, but from 15 to 19 was really probably the most difficult period of my life, and Kenobi helped me through that. When I got him, I had to grow up, I had to be home. I couldn't just run off to Las Vegas with my friends every other weekend. I couldn't just go on 3, 4, 5 day benders without coming home, because I had to come home and take care of Kenobi. And I've always been a responsible pet owner. I think it's very, very important if you're going to decide and make the decision to take a pet. You're going to be there for the rest of their lives, and they will be a small part of your life. They will make you happy, but I'm everything that Kenobi has known for the last 12 and a half years, and I will very much be there his entire life. And you know, Thor, Lola, Simon, Gizmo, Aphrodite, John Jr., Rufio, I was gonna say Rufio, and Puff, but Puff passed away recently. And you need to be there, and you need to be a responsible person when you decide to, you make the decision to bring a pet into your life. And I know plenty of people who, they get a cat, they get a dog, and they get rid of it because they don't like it, and maybe a year or two later they decide, oh, maybe I want a cat or a dog again, and they do, and they turns out they didn't. And you know, it's hard for me to see that. You know, I don't really criticize, I don't like to criticize other pet owners, but I really honestly believe that you can be a good pet owner or a bad pet owner. And I hope all of you out there are great pet owners if you have them. If you ever want to make the decision to have a dog or a hamster or a cat or a guinea pig or a rabbit or anything, a bird, whatever you do, I hope that you guys are responsible pet owners too, because these guys will bring so much joy to your life that you just might not have otherwise. And I love Kenobi more than anything in this whole world. I mean, except of course for Iris and Nikki and my family, but he is very much family to me, and I love him, and I will always be here for him. And I hope he lives another 13 years, but that's just not gonna happen. I think he's getting old and he's not feeling well, and I worry about him kind of every day about how it's gonna go, and if he's gonna be able to get up, and if he's gonna eat. And that was kind of like the first time. For a couple weeks ago, Kenobi didn't eat all of his food, and that is really honestly the first time that has ever happened. And that's not a good sign. That's a very, very bad sign when your animal, he just stops eating. He hasn't stopped eating altogether. He's eating less. He's still eating regularly, which is good. But like I said, it's, you know, there's just a lot of things are starting to happen with Kenobi in his old age. And I wanted to make this video and talk about it, so I have these memories for the rest of my life. And I want to remember Kenobi. I want to remember the good times. I remember how important he is to me. And with YouTube and videos these days, you know, I have pictures of my dog Daisy from growing up, who I absolutely loved. You know, I had put her down. It was one of the hardest things that had ever happened to me at that point in my life. And you know, we're gonna get there with Kenobi again sooner or later. And I don't know, I'm not looking forward to it. I love this dog. I will love him forever. I will hold him in my heart. You know, Nikki had a cat heart for 23 years, so she kind of understands, you know, what I'm going through with Kenobi and him being there for me. And I'm gonna give him the best care for the rest of his life that I can, when I always have. But I'm gonna be there for him. I know he's gonna be there for me, and I love him a lot. So thank you for watching this video. I know it's kind of out of the regular, but Kenobi is very much a big part of our life and our family and our channel, and always has been. And I just wanted to share this with you and capture this moment for myself and have it forever. So thanks for watching, guys. Please give this video a thumbs up. I'm not going to end this with the regular end card roll scene and all that stuff. I'm just going to kind of leave it here with me and Kenobi and you guys, and let you just hopefully know a little bit how much I feel for this dog and how important he is to me and the family. And yeah, so I love you, Kenobi. I love you so much.
And do me a favor, guys, if you're watching this, if you're still watching this, tell me what your favorite memory of Kenobi in our vlogs is. If you have just something that comes to mind that you've been watching over the years, Kenobi did something, he was in a video that you remember, tell me, because I don't necessarily remember every single day, every single moment of the last 13 years with Kenobi. But I want to, and you guys can comment. I will go through them, I will read them, and it will totally come back to me when I see what you guys have to say too.